Why do these chords not sound like they should? If you've ever reached for a suspended chord and been left scratching your head, you're not alone, especially when we go beyond the basic sus2 and sus4 chords into more ambiguous, murky territory. Today I want to show you some lesser known suspended chords that challenge our assumptions and force us to listen differently. And by the end, you'll not only understand why these chords sound the way they do, but you'll be able to use them to create tension, ambiguity and colour in your own songwriting. I've been playing guitar for over 20 years, writing songs for just as long and making videos since 2021 that have been seen by millions. I've helped thousands of people write songs and chord progressions through my videos, email list and online course. I also spent years working as a tutor, breaking down complex ideas into something digestible. So trust me when I say, this stuff can be confusing, but it doesn't have to be. Let's start with an interesting mashup between two commonly used chords. A sus2 chord has the notes 1, 2 and 5, so C sus2 is constructed with C, D and G. If you add a major 7th to this, then you create a major 7th sus2 chord. Another way to arrive at this chord is by taking a major 7th chord and playing a second instead of a third. So C major 7 sus2 has the notes C, D, G and B. Have a listen to C major 7, then C major 7 sus2 to appreciate the difference between these two chords. Major 7 sus2 chords have a beautiful, subtle sound that is slightly unstable due to the lack of third. They are also somewhat ambiguous and don't sound quite like they should. The reason for this is the 5th note. The way the chord is constructed can lead us to hear the 5th note as the root. So in our C major 7 sus2 example, we might think that G is the root note. You can see why this might be, as the notes for the G major chord, G, B and D, are contained within the C major 7 sus2 chord. Have a listen to this when I remove the C note from the chord in the next example. The reason for this ambiguity is because we are so used to hearing standard triads in music. So when we hear C major 7 sus2, we lack E or E flat, which would make us recognise a triad with C as the root. So instead, the ear is drawn towards G as the root, because the third of G major B is right there. In this case, it could be said that most people would hear this chord as G major with C in the bass, or G/C. Have a listen if we move from C major 7 sus2 to G. Rather than changing chords entirely, instead it feels like we have resolved G/C to its true form, G major. If you're finding this useful, then give the video a like. It really helps more people discover these tips. And if you'd like more insights like this every week, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video that could take your songwriting to the next level. In major keys, you can diatonically play major 7 sus2 chords as 1 and 4. The unstable nature we just discussed means you are less likely to hear them used on the 1 tonic chord, but they can make for a pleasing 4 chord, which then resolves to the standard 1 tonic. Have a listen to this next C major key example. I'll start by playing 1 and 4 as major 7 sus2 so you can hear how they sound. Pay particular attention to the change from 4 major 7 sus2 to 1 and how pleasing it sounds. F major 7 sus2 has the notes F, G, C and E, so it could also be written as C/F, C major with F in the bass. Therefore, you could consider it as an altered 1 tonic chord. This means it works well with the 1 chord in first inversion. In our C major example, this creates a bass that moves from F to E, a pleasing half-step move. I'll play our example progression again, but use the first inversion C chord so you can hear this at work now. You can also use this chord as a passing chord, a bit like standard sus chords. This idea works well when played with the major 7th version, to provide pleasing contrast and tension that is quickly resolved. Here's an altered version of our example progression that demonstrates this. I'll show you the next chord in a second, but if you're finding this all a bit challenging and you just want some help writing your first major key song, then check out my course, Write Your First Song in 1 Hour. Learn more at onehoursong.com or click the link in the description. If you are already familiar with sus chords, you may know that there is a sus4 chord as well as a sus2 chord. As such, there is also a major 7 sus4 chord that is worth exploring. You can find the notes for this chord by taking a sus4 chord and adding a major 7th note, or by swapping the 3rd note in a major 7th chord for a 4th. So C major 7 sus4 has the notes C, F, G and B. You can hear how unstable this chord is, more so than the major 7 sus2. That's because the 4th and 5th notes are fighting against each other to be heard as the root of the chord. In major keys, major 7 sus4 chords can only feature diatonically as the one tonic chord. So the 4th and 5th mean it sound like you have a version of the 4 and 5 chords being played. These chords naturally resolve to the one tonic, so the 1 major 7 sus4 also works best when played before the standard one tonic chord. Have a listen to this in the key of C major now. I'll play 4 to 1, then 5 dominant 7th to 1, and finally 1 major 7 sus4 to 1, so you can appreciate the difference. There is also another way that you can think of this chord. In our example, you could say that C major 7 sus4 is like G7 with a C bass note. That's because G7 with a C bass note has the notes C, G, B, D and F. And we know that C major 7 sus4 has the notes C, F, G and B. The only note difference is D, which is the 5th of G7. It is common to omit the 5th from a chord, as it doesn't change the feel of a chord. Have a listen to the two to hear how similar they are, and why this major 7 sus4 chord is such a confused chameleon. The problem with major 7 sus chords is that they have very particular use cases and they aren't heard that often. If you want to understand the core of these chords and learn something more useful for your songwriting, then you need to learn about sus chords. Watch the video on screen now to understand how to use these versatile chords.